practiced yesterday's example, dependency injection of various data types. Have you all tried? Guys, I'm asking you, anyone tried yesterday's example? At least one? No? Okay. Handy you have examples, right? Yeah, you practice. Great. Please all just download that example from Git and load it into local and execute it. If you have very basic issues also with coding, reach out to me, okay? I'll help you. Don't hesitate, okay? You can ping me. If I am available, I'll connect you. Okay? Very basic things also, right? Don't hesitate. Yeah. So that's good. If you did already, if not, okay, please go through the examples, okay, and practice it thoroughly. Yeah. Now we will extend little more about dependency injection, okay, and we'll show you how to inject them. So we learned, right, already, to inject anything into our class, once again repeating, developer only will do this dependency injection. Dependency injection will do developer only. Who do dependency injection means developer only. During his development time, he will use this feature, and this feature will enable your application classes loosely coupled like GSM phone. Anytime you can remove your dependencies and add new dependencies. Okay, in a simple words, you can remember it. Okay, so anytime you can change your dependencies. So the dependencies for which classes can be for your controller class, can be for a service class, it can be for a DO class, anything, any of your application class. Not only controller service DAOs, sometimes you may have some utility classes, helper classes we say. So it can be your utility helper class also. Anything you imagine, definitely your classes will have some dependencies. Okay, while writing your classes, you will encounter some dependencies in your methods. So you will be declaring that variables on class level, and if that is a configuration parameter, you can inject that from your XML file. Okay, so in how many ways we can inject our dependencies? I have a dependency variable here. Let's say a string variable I have here, string name. We learned so far we can inject this string name using setter method. Okay, either by writing a setter method here or by using annotation at the rate setter. At the rate setter annotation will provide you setter methods. If you go with the Lombok, you need not to write setter methods. Till here, cool. Using setter method, IOC can able to give you data which is configured in XML. Data can be passed from XML file to your class via IOC. IOC will call setter methods after creation of this class object. By reading your XML data, it will produce a object, and from that object it will call setter methods. It creates object, and thereafter when you use being here, you configure your class, whatever it is, controller or service or DAO or utility class, anything. So to call setter methods, we use a tag called property. Property tag given for setter methods. if you have at the rate setter or at the rate data, Lombok annotations. Okay, at the rate setter, or people will use at the rate data also. Data will provide all setter and getters, everything. At the rate setter will provide setter method only. At the rate data will provide setters and getters as well. Okay. So when you see at the rate data or when you see at the rate setter on your class, when you see means you only will be writing it. Okay, you will write it at the rate setter or at the rate data. You can use property tag here. You can use property tag here or a setter method. You can use property tag here. Property tag given for setter methods. So in your class, if you have any setter method, you can call that setter methods using property tag. And there is another way, right? There is another way. Instead of setters, we can use constructors also. The difference between setter and constructor here, right? While using setter method, you can able to pass only one variable at a time. While using setters, we can pass only one variable at a time. Let's say if you have a name, only name you can pass. If you have email, only email. If you have one collection object, only one collection object you can pass. Via setter method, we can't inject multiple parameters. For each parameter, you need to have one setter method. For each variable, you need to have one setter method and one property tag here. For each variable, one setter method, one property tag. Let's say here if I have two variables, two property tags. If I have three property tags. If I have four property tags. So for each setter method, you need to call a property tag here. For each setter method, you need to call a property tag here to pass your data. When it comes to constructor, you need not to have this many setters. Let's say you have two variables, string name, string email. Usually constructor given to create object. Usually constructors given to create object of your class. And throughout application, how many objects we create? Only one object. We create only one object. All your classes are singletons, as I said, right? Only one object. Throughout application, throughout its lifetime, only one object it will be there. So how many constructors you may usually required? You are creating only one object, so mostly one constructor. Only one constructor you will be having. So I have two properties. For two properties, if I create one constructor here, let's say if it is your controller, so controller constructor with same class name, whatever class you have. And here we pass that arguments, name and email. And these two parameters you have to compulsory give as a input. You have to give as a input compulsory to your this dot name is equal to name, this dot email equal to email we put. And if you want to use constructor based dependency injection, right? Constructor will accept multiple arguments. Of course, you need to pass multiple arguments. If you have multiple arguments in your class, multiple variables that you want to inject, I have name and email. Earlier, I used to have one setter method for each variable, so I can call them. And they are optional also. Property tags are optional. These are optional tags. One property I can give, and if one other property if I don't want, I need not to pass it. Okay, property tag is optional. While using property tag is optional, but if your dependency is mandatory, you need to pass it. You should be very careful. Let's say here if you have username, password, if both are mandatory, you need to call both property tags. If you intentionally miss one, Spring will not give you any error. Excuse me. Spring will not say you need to pass two arguments. You have two arguments. You need to call two setter methods. It never says that because your property tags are optional. But when you use constructor, if constructor is having one parameter or more than one parameter, any number of parameters you can have here as arguments, and it is your duty to pass compulsory all the arguments from here. When you use constructor, we never use property tag. For constructor, we use constructor argument tag. The tag name called constructor argument tag. Constructor hyphen argument tag. Constructor hyphen argument tag we will use. Constructor hyphen argument. Constructor hyphen argument. For each property, right, we need to use one constructor argument tag. And it is mandatory that if you have two variables, two inputs that you need to pass, two constructor arguments you need to pass. So this is like right, you are creating an object. When you want to create an object for a class, let's say student class is having the two variables. Student is equal to new student of, I have one parameterized constructor. Can I create object without that parameters? If my class is having parameters, class student in general, right? If you have two variables here, name, email, and if you have a parameterized constructor here with no default constructor, if your class is having no default constructor, is it possible to create object like this? Not possible, because you don't have default constructor. So you have one parameterized constructor, only one constructor you have, and you should compulsory pass the two arguments to create it. So the first argument and the second argument, two strings you need to give as the inputs here, name and email. And you should create object. Both parameters are mandatory. Do you have any excuse if you pass only one argument? Will it allow you to create? No. If you pass only one argument and if you remove one argument, it will expect one argument constructor. But you don't have an argument constructor here. So it is mandatory that you need to pass second argument also. Because you have only one constructor here with two arguments, you should pass them compulsory. So while creating object in a hard-coded approach itself, it is saying mandatory, right? Then how it will leave us here? It is not possible. You need to pass all the arguments. If you have one argument compulsory you should give. If you have two arguments you should pass. Then only it will recognize your constructor and it will create object for you. So constructor argument, if you have two arguments, right? Two arguments are mandatory to pass. There is no excuse here. You need to pass them. Mandatory. Like setter method, these are not optional. Mandatory. Depends on number of arguments you have. It will be depending on number of arguments we have. Depends on number of arguments that we have. Okay. So let's say if you have one argument, one constructor argument. If you have two constructor arguments. Three constructor arguments, right? If you have 10 constructor arguments. So depends on the number of arguments you have. You need to put that many constructor argument tags here. And while using this property tags are optional. And one more thing, you need not to follow order. Generally to call methods, right, you need not to follow any order. So I have name, email, address, something XYZ, and for each property I have a setter method. Is it mandatory to call that in the same declared order? Nothing. So first you can call name or first you can call email. There is no difference in it. while calling or while using property tags. So no order required. No order required. Okay. Listen this carefully. Okay. So while using property tags, you need not to follow any order. First you can pass email. Next you can pass name. It will never worry about the order which you pass. It's okay. You pass. End of the day, you are passing all arguments or not. That is the matter. If they are really required. So you need not to follow order there. But while using constructor argument, what happens if I pass email here, this argument if I shift here, and if this argument if I shift here, if I change this argument's place, what happens here? This email will place it into name argument, email will go into name argument, name will go into email argument. Email will be passed here, name will be passed here. So whatever arguments you pass here, right? If you pass email as a first argument, it will go and set it into name variable. And email, if you put it into first variable, it will go and set it into email variable. So your configurations will go wrong. In place of username, password may go, password place username may go, or in place of driver name URL, in place of URL driver name. If you don't follow order, right, while using your arguments, they never work properly because you injected them or you misplaced them without any ordering here. So you should be careful while using constructors, right? If you have name string type, email string type, it will not say you are passing email here, you are passing name here. Be careful. You should be careful. Nobody knows that this is email or this is name. You should know that the arguments which you are giving are in proper order or not while using constructor. So you should follow order here. You should follow order here. Follow order here. Otherwise, configurations may go wrong. So you need to follow order here. If you don't want follow order, again we have a way to exchange the order, change the order so that we can see. But while using constructor based dependency injection, you should be careful. Okay. So let me give an example. Yeah, let me create an example here. Dependency injection with the constructor. Build path, configure build path. Please ensure you are using 1.8 or lower versions because we are using Spring 3 that will not support the latest versions. It is not working. Okay, be careful while adding library. Now let's create a class beans student DAO. I think we have it here, right? Employee DAO. Let me use similar example. Here it is having setter methods. Instead of setter methods, I will take this driver URL username password via parameterized constructor. Okay, only one constructor for one class. And it's your wish if you want to create multiple constructors, but usually one class, one constructor at a time, because one object only we can able to create for entire application. So we will be having one constructor only. Okay. Now how to create, go to source, generate constructor using fields, generate. So if you see a parameterized constructor with driver URL username password. When you create a parameterized constructor, no default constructor will be available. Okay. So compiler will not provide any default constructor. So now you have only one way, one constructor only. There you need to pass driver URL username password. Now using these properties, I will save data here. Student information. Let me save class dot for name driver connection driver manager dot get connection URL username password. As soon as you get connection, you can create statement execute update. So whatever inputs I get, I can save them here from the end user. Int ID, string name. So I can insert them here. ID, name, email, address. So it will insert data. As soon as it inserts, close it, close your connection. Bus. You're done here. Okay. But before calling this create method, I need to pass inputs here via constructor. So either you create constructor or else use at the rate constructor annotation. Right. At the rate all argument constructor. We need Lombok dependency, right? So go here, add Lombok jar file. use here all argument constructor. See, it is showing error saying that duplicate student DAO in your DAO class. It is saying already duplicate method, it is saying not method, it is a constructor. It's okay. It is saying there is already a constructor. So who written it? Nobody. It is providing one default, one all argument constructor, and we have an all argument constructor. That's why it is giving error. Either you write or put all argument constructor. Okay. One is mandatory. You put this way or this way. Okay. So now inject them here. Create XML file and configure your student to DAO. So we need to pass driver URL username passwords into our DAO. The class name is beans.student to DAO. And we have not property tag, we have constructor tag. We have constructor argument tag. So you need to use constructor argument. How many arguments I have? 4 arguments. Argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, argument 4. And here for property tags you are guiding Spring saying that there will be setter method for driver, URL, username, password, call them and give them as inputs. But in constructor argument you don't have any name attribute to say go and set into driver variable, URL variable, username variable, password variable. You don't have that. So just you need to pass arguments as arguments like you pass it into constructor. Just you need to pass values, that's it. So based on the order you have given, let's say if you pass something here, that will straight away go and insert into this first field. Second argument will place it into second field. Third argument will place it into third field. Fourth one into fourth field. So it will follow strictly order. So you need to follow and pass them. So you need to follow the order. Same order you should follow and you should inject them. Now all these arguments will be passed into your class. You can test it. Get bean. Here we have student DAO. Get the student DAO class object and insert it. Create student. Pass ID, name, email, address, and check do you have student table or not. Just my table name is student. I have table. Let me drop table student. Table is dropped. Create table student ID number name varchar 2 email address first, right? Yeah, table is ready now. Now let's run your class and see will this data gets inserted or not, or you can insert multiple records here. Every time it will go and insert new data. Run it and see. Insert success, insert success, insert success. So 4 records got inserted. You may see the data is getting inserted here. Okay, so this is working fine. But if you see the object creation, how it was happened internally by reading data from this XML file, Spring container called your constructor with the parameters, a parameterized constructor called, and given all these inputs, driver, URL, username, passwords. In case if you jumble this order, first I will pass username, password, and next to driver, URL, username, password. Can't it understand this is as a driver name URL? No, because you are not giving a particular variable name here. We are not mentioning the name. So directly system will go and insert into driver place, admin will go and insert into URL place, and this will treat like a username, this will treat like a password. It can't help us. Yeah. Nothing showing because you are getting exception basically. You are getting exception during execution of this code. If you can print it, if you have date to print, print and see. It will shout on you. See, class not found. System is a class. It is saying I don't find the system class. See it? So we didn't follow any order. In place of driver name, we given system. So no excuses here. You need to follow strictly order. In case if you want to skip the order, then you need to place the indexes. Index 1, I want to pass driver. Index 2, URL. Index 3, username. Index 4, password. If you have indexes, then you need not to worry. You can shuffle the order. Okay, indexes starting from 0. 0th index, first index, second index, and third index. Insert success, success, success. Again it inserted all 4 records. One more time. Let me truncate this data. Okay, all data erased, no data. Okay, now if you want to shuffle the order, shuffle it. Now you need not to bother about your order. As you given indexes, right, easily it can adjust. Based on the indexes only, it will pass your arguments. So now first giving second argument, second giving first argument, and then third argument, fourth argument, then third argument. So now no order. It's okay. You have indexes. So first it will go and place this one into the driver, next to this one, third this one, and fourth this one. So when you use index, need not to follow any order. Now see, it will not say any error. Rather than giving errors, it is saying success. So your data for sure inserted here. See, so that's why you need to be careful while dealing with constructor based dependency injection. You guys clear so far? Yeah. So don't jump into the confusion concepts again. Okay. Here again, constructor with multiple data types, multiple constructors. You never encounter that situation. Okay. So just till here is sufficient. In next session, we will go with annotations, field level injection, right? So somebody asked how many types of dependency injections and what is field level injection. So now, right, we are done with setter. If a class requires data, via setter we can give, or using constructor we can give, and the next thing is annotations. So we'll see that tomorrow. Okay. So again, tomorrow's concept is very important. Okay. So the annotation concept, that is what we use generally in real time. Okay. Don't miss that session. Yeah, I given access. Yes. Yeah, I'll share it again. Yeah, go ahead. Dependency injection. Uh, okay, which one you are talking about? The data. Yeah, that's what I was strictly saying. These are end user inputs. Don't bother about this end user inputs via dependency injection. Always, who are these? Your application users, right? I don't have web though, so that I am inserting from here. But these are your end users. End users will come and pass the data to your methods. They will supply data to your methods. You need not to inject them. You should not actually. Getting the context, this data will come from end users. We never ask the data to developer to pass into methods. Methods given for a use case purpose. Developer or your application will never pass data here. This data should come from the end users only. Okay. End users data we never inject. Developers data, driver, URL, username, passwords are for developers. Developers should use the dependency injection. Okay, remember this. Yes, as I said, we can use setter methods and play, but that will deviate your thought process. You will be in a confusion state if you do that. Okay, don't do that. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's it, guys. And let me share the material. Okay, somebody asked spring September. It's okay. Just a minute. Okay, I just shared the link. You guys can download it. Okay. So that's it for today. Small session, but yeah, uh, that's it for constructor. Tomorrow we'll see more about annotations. Okay. From tomorrow we will see all the real time current techniques that we use even for object creation, dependency injection. Okay. Don't miss the next upcoming sessions. Okay. And thoroughly practice till today, right? Whatever we have discussed. Review concepts, right? Go through them and get some hands on. Okay. So if you guys perfect on the IOC part, right? The remaining things are, cakewalk for you. They all are simple. Okay, just try to digest the IOC concepts and get some hands on. Yeah.